got the briefing minutes, it came back negative. Look at Richard. I had really, really cold.
Sherry? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the 4 o'clock budget workshop. Glad to see so many people here with smiling faces. We will take a roll call and then I'll announce about Councilman Bryan. Sherry, can you take a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Miller,
Here.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Present.
Councilmember Bryan,
Here.
Councilmember Frizzlo.
Here.
Councilmember Place.
Here.
Thank you. So Becky, can you explain to us before we get started with new business? Councilman Bryan is feeling under the weather and he just wanted to be safe. So do I understand if the 4 of us are in consensus that he can vote over the
Yes,
phone? Can you explain that a little bit?
All right, as long as, according to the Attorney General, as long as there is an in-person quorum here for the meeting, that if someone has an extraordinary reason for not being there, something other than they just don't want to show up, and there's a good reason, and certainly if he's ill, that's an excellent reason. If the remaining members of the city council agree with the reason that he's not here, you can allow him to participate in the meeting and also vote when we have the regular meeting.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Vice Mayor, is it all right with you if we
Yes,
allow him that?
I'm fine.
Okay.
If you need a motion, I'll make the motion.
No, I think it's just a consensus.
A consensus is fine.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
Councilman Frizzle?
I'm absolutely fine.
I'm okay with it, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we look like we're okay.
You're good to go, Richard.
Okay, with
Okay,
that,
fine.
okay, now I will have to do that again at the 6 o'clock meeting, so you know. All right, so right now, new business, discussion on proposed budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022. And Kurt, I think that's you.
Good evening, or good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor and members of council. Yes, we're here to discuss the proposed budget for the fiscal year 21-22. I did the same format of PowerPoint as I did the prior year. So, but at any point, stop me. I'm going to try and answer, I think, what will be the anticipated questions as we go through. But at any point in time, I brought the full budget with me. If you say I've got a question on page 45, we can turn to page 45 and answer it. Thank you for coming in at 4 o'clock. I know that's
It's my favorite.
it's 2 hours before our regular meeting. I don't think we're going to need all that time, but I wasn't sure where we'd be at. I think we may even be out of here in half an hour of this one, so fingers crossed. It's a pretty straightforward budget year. So I'll just dive right in. Just putting some dates out there. So today we're doing budget workshop, and then at the council meeting tonight, you will adopt a proposed millage rate. That will go, I'll send that to the property appraiser and now the property tax collector. This is the first year in the trim process that we have a tax collector. I think most of you have met him at events, Will Roberts, so that's a big change in the process of trim this year. But really, for us, it's just an extra email with our resolution saying, here's what we did. And we do everything through eTrim as well. And then tonight, you'll also be adopting to have the first meeting in September move to Monday. If you remember, that's the one we can't have a meeting same time as the school board or the county. So we're looking at September 13th, which is a Monday. It'll be at 6 o'clock as well. And then the second and final millage rate adoption and budget hearing will be September 28th. That is our regular scheduled meeting. So we'll try and remind you closer to that time that it's a Monday meeting, not a Tuesday, so we don't miss you for that fun. Quick things I'll go over tonight are the current taxable valuations for the city, rollback rates and where we stand within all the cities, our proposed rate for this coming budget year, any issues outstanding within the budget. We'll discuss the budget and then discuss debt and salary issues. That's a really short discussion, as you're well aware. So We're slightly up over the 2020 values, about 40 million in additional value. That's increases in existing values. And then of that, roughly 40 million is 1,057,005 in new growth. That is a combination of any actual new construction plus any reevaluations if somebody added a pool or added an addition to their house, they get reassessed for that extra square footage. We only had 1 million. Next year, I'm expecting a bigger number with like the Aruba should be on next year's. We'll be having more increases. So our total growth with 2.27%. I have a slide here on the rollback rate. I don't know, I think you all know what the rollback rate is. We've been through this before. So unless there's questions, I'm going to skip this slide. Diving right into our proposed millage rate. We are currently at 5.0476 for the general fund. Our rollback rate is 4.9356. The budget you have before you tonight proposes the rollback rate of 4.9356. In years past, we had the general obligation debt millage rate, which was for the current year 1.7350. And as you're all aware, that's 0 this year. So the budget's going to look really different because that shows as zeros in the current year budget. And so it'll look like we have major reductions, but it's because of the debt payoff that we had. So the current year rate, all millage rates combined, we are taxing our citizens 6.7826 per $1,000 of taxable value. This proposed rate, because we get rid of the debt and because we're going below the 5.0476, is only the 4.9356. So our citizens will see a rate reduction of 1.847 or 27.2% lower tax bill from the city.
That's not something we hear very often, right?
No, I know. It isn't. So thank you for your guidance and permission to do all of that in the last technically 2 fiscal years. Well, last year and the current fiscal year to pay off the debt and get us to that point.
So Kurt, if we didn't pay off all of our debt, we would have been at 4.93 plus
Plus
1.73.
approximately another 1.7
Okay.
mills, but we paid the debt off, so we can't collect it anymore because the debt's paid off.
Right.
And you're comfortable that the cash that we have as a result of paying off all the debt, paying off all our bills, is sufficient to be able to cover us?
Yes. We still have all funds included, around $25 million in the bank in cash. So I'm very comfortable with, and that ebbs and flows throughout the year based on cash flow, but
Is any of,
I'm very comfortable. Roughly 10 million in general fund, and that's what we had discussed when we were paying off the debt. We would go down to about 10 million in reserves, but
The remainder is sewer?
the remainder is sewer fund proceeds from that fund, and we have projects and stuff we can do there. So we are very, very strong in terms of that. We have our total general fund budget, including capital, is about a little over 14 million. Most cities hope to have 15 to 25% reserves, and that is usually of their operating budget. So that would be for us having a couple million in the bank, but we have 10 million. And we're fully insured on our buildings. Obviously, there's hurricane deductibles and things like that. But we are insured on all of our buildings, all of our properties. So those things are, we really, at the end of the day, with FEMA, you have to front some money, but a hurricane coming through, my opinion, we are well covered compared to my former city and between insurance and what we do have. And if we needed to, we can borrow from the sewer fund and pay ourselves back over time. So while we only have 10 million in general fund, we've got access today to to roughly 25 million total. So in terms of comfort, I'm very comfortable for the city. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yes, sir.
If we were to borrow from the city, would we charge ourselves any interest rate, the sewer or the general fund?
Most likely we would. That would be considered the prudent thing. And I see Becky shaking her head. I don't know offhand if there are state laws regarding that, but I would.
No, but I believe auditors have always told me that that is the
Yes.
appropriate thing to do.
Yes.
Because the set-aside money, for the sewer fund, the interest rates are so low now, you
Well,
wouldn't even notice it.
That's my point.
Right.
That's my biggest point,
But
is that.
you should pay yourself what the sewer fund would get.
Would have been getting an interest.
Correct, absolutely correct. That's my only issue. The issue is the cost of money is ostensibly free. So the only issue that I have, and again, you've already answered the question, is to make sure that we don't become cash poor by paying everybody off.
Yeah, no, we're
Yeah, and as long as you're comfortable, I'm comfortable.
and with our current reserves, I don't believe that if we went to a bank and said, we need to borrow 5 million tomorrow, that they would hesitate.
Correct.
I don't think there's
Given
going to
the
be,
given
and we're going to get
the
a
balance
great
sheet.
rate. Because we have cash. If we didn't have any reserves and we went to the bank, that'd be a different discussion, but we're in a good position. So rollback rate, we stay at position 12.
You were trying for that bottom.
I was trying to get us down into the purple. Now, there is a rumor, and I don't want to start rumors, but there's a rumor that Port Orange might be going to 5. A lot of the cities are trying to figure out how to address the $15 an hour issue. As you're aware, we've already addressed that. It's taken care of. So if that happens, we might end up down in the purple. However, what I'm hearing is that most cities are staying at their current rate, not rollback, because they're trying to address the $15 an hour in next year's budget. I've only heard of one that is going up, and they're only going up 0.2 mils. So,
But again, to defend your position here, if I may,
Yeah.
that's all encumbered upon whether or not they're still having the same level of services, right?
Correct.
So
Yes, absolutely.
anybody can put that up there and take away from the services and
Yes.
particularly public safety, because that is the number one service. So,
Yes.
so in our case, because we are giving more money and actually emboldening the public safety and our services, that puts us in good stead. Because we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul.
correct. So we're in a good position, unlike some of the other cities that in years past have gone below rollback multiple
Exactly.
years in a row. And while there are times where you may have to do that, my opinion, it's not a good practice. The state, about 10 years ago, I believe, when they updated the trim process, they started calculating a percentage increase. We have never adopted that, but where 3 of you can vote a higher rate than rollback at a certain level, and then they said, okay, anything above that level, it takes 4 of you to vote, but that factor is the personal income. And if I remember correctly, if we had done that income component increase to it, and I'm saying income, is the state factors it based off of the increase in personal income statewide average. So that percentage, and it's usually about 1% a year, but if we had done that, our rollback rate would be about 5.4 right now. But we don't need to be there.
Nor should we be, because the amount of revenues that are brought in is by the taxes on, particularly on the high-end condos, and those folks that we represent, our constituents, want services. And so therefore, you have to have services to be
Thank
able.
you for that transition to the next I'm going to change. I didn't put this in my slideshow, but I wanted to pull something up and just, I don't expect you to see this because it's a.
Is it in one of our slides or not?
No, it's up on the screen and you might be able to read it, but you'll see I've got some notes out here next to, this is a spreadsheet the property appraiser does every year. And I just like to look at it and see where is our revenue coming from. So if you go down to the line marked condominia, that's Excel row 7, 0400 condominia, and you go out to column J, you're going to see that 81.85% of our tax revenue comes from condominiums. So basically 82% of all of our revenue in property taxes is the tall buildings here in the city. It's not our commercial district, it's not the small homes. And what drives that, a big portion of that, is the next number there, which says only 29.35% of the condominiums are homesteaded. So over 2/3 are not homesteaded, and that's an additional $50,000 of taxable value per condominium. So, and then the last number that I have on here is the average taxable value of a condominium unit is $242,382.
That's really low.
It's low, however, it's actually pretty high.
Oh, is it?
Ormond, for example, is single-family homes. And the last time I did their calculation, that's where they get the majority of theirs, their average single-family home was $125,000. Last time I did it in Holly Hill, which was the majority of theirs, other than their commercial district, it was only $48,000 in taxable.
Happen to know what Ponce is? Did you do Ponce or no?
No, Ponce is unique because they have some really big expensive homes, and then it's more the townhome type thing. So I haven't looked at Ponce, but that's the average taxable value, and that includes, that's after all exemptions. So we have folks that have some very unique exemptions, senior exemptions, all these widower exemptions. There's certain folks. A couple years back, we adopted the veterans exemption, where your house can be fully exempt. So.
But that's only with a disability, or?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. So I don't dive into that and look at, how many of those we have and that kind of stuff. But I always find it interesting to look at this spreadsheet and know the source of the city's income. And it comes from condominium owners. And residents or snowbirds or, rentals or whatever, what have you, but it's coming from the condominiums. So thank you, Commissioner or Council Member Frizzalone, for that nice little transition to that.
I wanted to step back one time. Can you go back to that rollback
Yeah.
that you had right there? So, and I know the answer to this, but I just want to congratulate all of us on, so that rate we can still do with the $15 starting, not only the $15 starting, but the compression that we did,
Yep.
everyone on up, and then also how we overwhelmingly wanted to do something about the issue we had with hiring and public safety. So with the starting wage increase and the take-home cars.
Yes.
Still able to do all of this
Yes.
with that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So the big piece of that was, as you're aware, in last year's budget and prior years, we had roughly an annual debt payment to the non-undergrounding portion of about $800,000 a year. Well, that money was, because we paid that bond off, that money was freed up and helped pay for those changes. So along with our regular increases. Did that answer?
Yeah, that it did.
So as I said, we're proposing to go to rollback 4.9356. The rate you will adopt at the council meeting tonight, you cannot increase at your tentative or final rate adoption meetings. I see no reason to be concerned about that this year. We have, I have no real concerns about anything dramatically changing between now and then.
So you can go down.
You can always go down, but you can't go up. So in a prior year, because we had some major unknowns, at one point the council had said, okay, well, let's go with our current rate. And then we discussed lowering it in September, but I don't have any need to request that of the council this year. I think we're in a very, very good position budgetarily. With that, I'll kind of get into some of the highlights. So our prior year budget was 22.4 million. This year's budget is only 14.2. This is general fund. So a total budget decrease of 8,142,800. You'll see in one of the next slides what that is composed of. It's primarily debt. In this year's budget, we are adding a new public information officer position to the community center budget. And it includes 3 planned retirements during the fiscal year that we know of.
That public PIO will be more or less what we discussed, maybe a marketing type person?
It's a marketing and social media, website, all of that type of thing. I have a copy of the job description, and it is very heavy on the marketing side as well.
Have we put that out?
We have not yet. We won't until probably September timeframe, because this budget isn't funded until October 1st.
What's the primary role of the individual?
It's going to be increasing our marketing for primarily this building and city events, and serving as well as a public information officer if we have the need at the time.
And this person will be utilized by public safety, by staff,
And
by...
utilized by anybody in the city. If there's a message the council wants to get out to people, we would go to this person and say, whether it's a city event or anything that the council has in the past asked.
They don't get that on Facebook and Twitter
Exactly.
and whatever.
Yes.
So like an expanded Stacy.
Exactly. I think it's a great idea, just for whatever it's worth.
So revenue decreases this year. Compared to last year's budget, we are taking the voted debt, brought in about 2.9 million a year, the 2,888,500, and we're appropriating fund balance. We reduced the prior amount from 5,772,700 to about 484,000. So there are still some revenue unknowns out there. The state revenue sharing, they haven't issued their guidance on that yet, but the big change this year is the legislature is now making all online companies pay sales tax. Now, the state has said they're going to collect billions more. I don't know what that means trickling down to the city. A lot of the major players, I believe Amazon is already collecting that in the state and stuff, but the other online, the smaller ones are now going to have to collect that as well. So that's an unknown, but